This is my first time holding a Shingleback Skink. I just saw my first one ever when I went to Tinley, but they're like $10,000 in the United States, and so he wasn't letting people hold it for some reason. So I'm here today with Cooper, and you have your own YouTube channel.
Sure do.
Will you tell us a little bit about it?
So my channel is called Coop's Reptiles. I basically cover lots of different things about Australian reptiles. I have a collection at home, just care, showcase, I go out herping, all that sort of stuff. Everything Aussie reptiles, because that's all I can work with here.
He talks about the coolest things that I can never talk about. And when we were walking around here, we just got in the door, and Cooper saw us, and I'm like,
Yep. There's Clint.
Holy cow, I've got a friend in Australia. This is amazing. Look at that head and tail. You tell me which is which.
And these guys in Australia, I don't know about overseas, they have a lot of different common names. They obviously shingleback, two-head lizard, people call them pine cone skinks.
Yes, for some reason.
Bobtails, sleepy lizards, all sorts. But yeah, shingleback's generally what you hear in this part of Australia anyway. But yeah.
Do you breed them here?
I suppose we're trying, but we're not really expecting anything.
I think they're kind of tough because do they breed for life? Is that true?
Yeah, so in the wild, these guys are probably one of the only known monogamous reptiles. So basically what happens is every year a male will find a female, and if they like each other, they'll get together, have the baby. These guys only have one or two babies at a time usually, and they come out basically 50% of the size of the parent. But then they split ways, the two parents. And then the next year, that same male will find that same female, hunt her down, and yeah, they'll follow her around for a couple of weeks, and they'll breed again, babies again, and just keep repeating. There's been scientists that have, I think, has concluded some pairs they've recorded for about 30 years together, being faithful to each other. So I know sometimes they have these groups that they've marked down, and they just drive along up this road down in South Australia, and the guy can just pick out which pairs together, and it's like, oh, they've been together 25 years. Oh, they've been together 15 years. I just think they're the most gorgeous little skink ever.
Oh, they're special.
Beautiful.
There's that tricolor kind of calico locality too that's really beautiful.
They're very variable in color. This one's, if you have a look at his
He's really dark.
belly, yeah, it's pretty much a
even his tongue.
Yeah, melanistic form basically is what these guys are. These guys, they're in the blue tongue family. They are Tiliqua. But they have a bit of a darker blue tongue for some reason. That's pretty consistent along all shinglebacks. So this is the...
Are they out in the sun more than the others?
Yeah, these guys live inland and they just bake out there.
Because
So they have these big scales too. It helps them retain more water, and obviously the tail, fat and water reserves. And the scales as well slow them down in the wild. So it's basically the trade-off. They're not as fast as a blue tongue, but they have the scales for extra protection. And yeah. As far as colours though, there's the Goldfields ones, which live over in WA, and they can be bright orange down the whole body and everything.
Those are cool.
This is the eastern form, so they're more dark like this. Sometimes they got yellow banding that's very subtle. But yeah, very interesting little animals. And then there's other ones that are like green coloured, ones that live on islands and things like that.
There are a few hypotheses for that blue tongue on blue tongues.
Yep.
And I don't really buy the aposematic coloration hypothesis, just because. Is there anything toxic in blue in Australia?
Good question. I'm not sure about that one.
So I don't know how there would be...
Nothing that comes to the top of my head.
I don't know how they'd be mimicking something toxic if there's nothing toxic like that.
I'll tell you what, I was actually involved in some studies at Macquarie University on blue tongue skink tongues. And
tell me more.
Everything about that. So basically what we found is we measured their tongue for UV reflectance.
Yes.
And obviously one of their main predators is birds. And birds see in ultraviolet, they see ultraviolet color spectrums. So we found out that the tongue is very high, like very bright in the UV color. So what happens is they concluded that they open the mouth, stick out the tongue, and it's like a overpowering sort of bright flash for the birds. And that's how they get away from it basically.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
I assume it's the same thing with these guys. They might have that darker blue tongue like that, but the UV might be the same, you know?
Yeah, I wonder if it could be both, because that is really interesting.
Yeah.
And
I'll link you the study.
I would like that a lot. I've seen some studies talking about like the blue tongues of giraffes.
Yeah.
Being mostly for protection from UV, because the tongue's out so much during the day. And these guys are also, tongue out, but then this one's out in the sun the most. It has the darkest tongue. You've got the others that aren't out so much, and they've got a pretty dark blue tongue. And then you've got the island localities where their tongues are almost not blue at all. And I wonder if it coincides with how much
And I've
sun
also
exposure.
heard studies that the tongue coloration as well is also communication between animals.
Oh yeah.
Like there's subtle differences in their tongues or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, they're very fascinating animals, that's for sure.
They definitely use that tongue as part of a threat display, and that
Absolutely, yeah.
UV reflectance, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And we found as well, because we looked at different points on the tongue, and they found right at the back of the tongue is the brightest part.
Mm-hmm.
So usually when you see them in
And
the
that's when
display, they stick out a little bit first, and then when they get really close, they open everything right up. And even the gums too, we found actually had some UV reflectance.
That kind of makes some sense too, because they stick the tongue out to smell, and you don't necessarily want to be indicating to every bird around that you're there.
Yeah.
But then once they're there, I mean, that's when they stick the full tongue out. They open the mouth really wide, and that's the flash. Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
I find that very believable.
Reptiles are so much more interesting than people often give them credit
Oh,
for.
yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah, that is your shingleback.
And this is your parietal eye up here.
Yep.
That's a pretty well-defined one. This is special. Thank you.
How much did you say they were?
$10,000 or so? That's US dollars.
You hear it on the news every few weeks here. People will get caught trying to smuggle all these out. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Especially over to, I think the Asian countries especially.
Oh, yeah.
We see a lot of people get caught for it, and you hear a lot about it. So that's why,
I'm glad they're doing so much to protect your wildlife here, though.
What you guys preach a lot is the whole captive breeding and all that. So 100%, especially with these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're getting one for a good price, I guess, over where you are, it's probably been wild caught and smuggled over and probably half alive.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
they're adorable.
I love it. I don't want to put it
And
down.
you'd think with these guys, because they only have 1 or 2 babies at a time.
I was going to ask you about that. Do they have extremely low mortality?
Yes,
They have very few
100%.
predators.
Like blue tongues, for example, their close relative. I've had a blue tongue that's had 20 babies before, single female. You think, oh wow, there should be blue tongues everywhere. Not exactly, because heaps of them get picked off.
Yeah.
You think with a shingleback, because they only have 2 babies, oh, there's going to be none around. But you go out on the roads in the outback, everywhere, because babies are very strong. They come out very large, and that helps them to survive.
My research was in life history evolution.
Yep.
And when you have really low predation, you tend to get small clutches of large offspring.
Size. Yep.
And so this
it's like
is
elephants,
Oh yeah.
Same thing, same
But
principle.
as soon as you told me they only have 2 and they're huge, I'm like, oh, they must almost never die.
The baby can come out up to 50% of the size of the parent.
That's so incredible.
That would hurt.
Yes. So this has been a great day, and you're showing us all kinds of cool animals.
Happy to.
I love it. I love it.